Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa has told senior National Prosecuting Authority heavyweights, advocates Mrwebi Jiba and Lawrence Mrwebi, that he intends to pursue inquiries into their fitness to hold office. The pair have to provide reasons as to why they should not be suspended before the 10th of this month. The president has also decided to drop the appeal that was being pursued by his predecessor, Jacob Zuma, to protect the two. This comes as speculation mounts that there may soon be a shake-up at the very top of the NPA, with even prosecution's boss Shaun Abrahams' future looking uncertain. Well, we're joined now by Diesel Black Star specialist reporter Karyn Maughan to help us understand the lay of the land, as it were, and she's in our Cape Town studios. Karyn, good evening to you, and thank you for joining us. I mean, it was just a couple of weeks ago that things were looking up for the two in light of that decision by the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein.
Well, absolutely. But then the General Counsel of the Bar announced that they would appeal that decision, and they've said that they believe that to the Constitutional Court that they do have a reasonable prospect of success. But perhaps more damagingly for them, there had been a court order obtained by Freedom Under Law on the 16th of December last year that essentially said that President Jacob Zuma, as he then was, decision not to institute inquiries into Mrwebi and Jiba was simply irrational, and that essentially compelling him to do so. Also saying that Shaun Abrahams' decision to drop the perjury and fraud charges against Mrwebi Jiba in relation to a handling of the Johan Boysen matter was irrational, and essentially saying that those charges should be reinstituted. And as in the wake of the GCB ruling, which was obviously a very positive development for Mrwebi Jiba and Lawrence Mrwebi, this full ruling, which essentially compelled Jacob Zuma to take action against this pair, has now provided a firm and fertile legal basis for President Cyril Ramaphosa to initiate these inquiries against him. In dropping his predecessor Zuma's appeal, Ramaphosa is now compelled to institute these inquiries.
I thought it was particularly telling, Karyn, that the president in his statement talked about that the NPA cannot afford a perception of a lack of trust.
Absolutely, and when one considers that the full judgment that was obtained against Mrwebi and Jiba was in relation to 4 different court rulings in which not only the High Court but the SCA raised serious concerns about the honesty and integrity of Jiba, who was at that time serving as the head of the NPA between 2011 and 2013, in conduct that specifically related to matters in which there was a keen political interest. The Johan Boysen matter, where he alleged, and there was a court judgment to this effect, that Mrwebi Jiba had essentially misled and lied to the court about the evidence before her when she decided to pursue a racketeering case against Johan Boysen. Johan Boysen believing and having stated that he believed that the basis of the case was that he was attempting to investigate Jacob Zuma's ally, Thoshan Pandey. We also saw serious questions being raised, which were actually the grounds for the GCB getting both Mrwebi and Jiba struck from the roll, about the pair's handling of the case against crime intelligence boss Richard Mluli, another self-proclaimed Zuma loyalist who, in a letter to the former president, made it clear that he would utilize his powers to support Zuma's battle for leadership of the ANC. And then, of course, most famously, arguably, Jiba's handling of the spy tapes matter and her apparent refusal to hand over the crucial recordings that the DA subsequently used to argue quite successfully that the decision not to prosecute Zuma was irrational. All of these matters are cloaked with the rhetoric of potential use of the NPA to further political interests and to protect those who are in favor with the ruling incumbent at the time being Jacob Zuma.
All right, that's the situation as far as those two are concerned. Let's now look at where Shaun Abrahams finds himself in this matter. 2 judgments, or 2 decisions last year, really within days of each other. The Ngasana matter, the state capture matter, that the then Deputy President, such as he was, Ramaphosa, needed to appoint a new head of the NPA. Yet there's been this concern that he himself hasn't been found guilty of any wrongdoing. It's a complicated legal wrangle, isn't it?
Absolutely. But the core issue here is that President Jacob Zuma, formerly President Jacob Zuma, admitted that the 17.3 million rand golden handshake he'd given to the previous NPA head, Mrwebi, was in fact illegal. And it's really a question of what is the legal consequence of that for Shaun Abrahams. Now, during the Constitutional Court's examination of the North Gauteng High Court's ruling, which essentially said that Shaun Abrahams' appointment was invalid and he should in fact vacate his office as a consequence of that illegal golden handshake deal, we saw Justice Sisi Kampepe repeatedly repeating that refrain from the North Gauteng High Court's ruling that keeping Shaun Abrahams in office would essentially reward the illegal conduct of Jacob Zuma in removing Nkosana. And we've seen people like Vin Trengrove, the counsel in this case, arguing quite powerfully that just as what happens when a tender is awarded illegally, work can be done as part of that tender, but when that tender is found to be illegal, the work ceases. And that is the kind of legal argument that has been employed in this case. We did, however, see during the argument around this matter that a number of judges, including Azar Kachalia, were very deeply concerned about the implications for Shaun Abrahams, saying that he had not been found unfit to hold office, and this would arguably not be fair and equitable to him. But I think what is certainly the suggestion at this point is that the court, if it does, as it's very much speculated that it will, find that Shaun Abrahams' appointment was invalid, it will couch that finding very strongly in terms of this not amounting to a finding that he is in fact unfit to hold office.
Final question for you, Karyn. The name Vusi Pikoli now being touted as a possible front runner to replace Shaun Abrahams if he is removed.
Yes, I mean, we know that the presidency has been looking at a number of people, and they are very, very well aware that given the massive credibility gap that currently exists in terms of public perception about the NPA, they really need to get someone who is a strong leader, who has the support of prosecutors, who has been potentially a career prosecutor themselves, has experience within this area to come and take the helm of this organization. We know that not a single National Director of Public Prosecutions has ever completed his or her term of office. We know that pretty much every single one of these officials has either been suspended, left in disgrace, been given golden handshakes. In the case of Menzi Simelane, been found to have not been rationally appointed. The history of the NPA, which is supposed to be a proud institution, ultimately guaranteeing that the rights of all South Africans are upheld within the criminal justice system and people are protected from corruption in all walks of life, has been strewn with the so-called metaphorical corpses of multiple leaders who were found either unfit or removed because of their pursuit of political principles, as is the case with Vusi Pikoli. Now, with Pikoli being arguably found to be someone who demonstrated immense integrity in terms of his handling of the Jackie Celebi prosecution and ultimately was removed because of that, there may be a real sense in which bringing him back to the NPA with his largely, arguably unblemished record, it could really be a new dawn for that organization. But of course, there are major political considerations at play, not least of all the fact that former President Jacob Zuma, when he brings his permanent stay of prosecution application, is going to put the NPA on trial and will focus much of his attack on the prosecution against him on officials like Vusi Pikoli.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Karyn Maughan, thank you very much for that analysis. As always, a specialist reporter with Diesel Blackstar, Karyn Maughan in our C Point studios tonight, giving us a sense of the expected shake-up at the National Prosecuting Authority.